The pre-dawn light barely penetrated the thick frost coating the train station windows as I trudged up the concrete steps, my worn leather briefcase bumping against my hip. At 6:30 a.m. in mid-January, Chicago's Ravenswood station stood nearly deserted, the usual commuter crowd still an hour away. I rubbed my gloved hands together, watching my breath curl into the air like smoke signals. The platform lights cast long shadows across the fresh snow that had fallen overnight, turning the world into a monochrome photograph. That's when I noticed the movement beneath bench 14, the one closest to the heating vent where the honor students usually clustered. At first I thought it was just a pile of discarded winter clothes left by some forgetful passenger. Then the pile shivered and two pointed ears twitched upward like radar dishes searching for a signal. A dog. Not just any dog, a Siberian Husky mix with the most striking eyes I'd ever seen. One icy blue like Arctic glaciers, the other deep brown like freshly turned earth. His silver and white fur was matted with snowmelt, and his ribs pressed against his skin with each shallow breath. What really caught me though was the scarf, a hand-knit navy blue thing wrapped carefully around his neck and tied in that particular lopsided way children knot things when they're trying their hardest. I knelt slowly, my aging knees protesting against the cold concrete. The young dog didn't growl or retreat, just tilted his head and studied me with those mismatched eyes. Up close, I could see the scarf wasn't merely draped, someone had taken great care to secure it just so. My fingers found something stiff beneath the wool, a Ziploc bag containing a single index card. The handwriting was uneven, the letters pressed so hard the pen had nearly torn through the paper in places. His name is Ghost. He doesn't like thunder but loves peanut butter sandwiches with the crusts cut off. Please love him like I do. No phone number. No address. Just those 22 words that hit me like a punch to the chest. Ghost, because of course that was his name now, took a tentative step forward, his oversized paws slipping slightly on the icy platform. When I held out my hand, he didn't sniff it like most strays would. He simply pressed his cold nose against my palm and exhaled deeply, as if he'd been holding his breath for days. His trust was instantaneous, absolute, and it shattered something in me I hadn't realized was still intact. The walk back to my classroom at Lincoln High School took twice as long that morning. Ghost trotted beside me like he'd been doing it his whole life, pausing occasionally to investigate particularly interesting snow piles or fire hydrants. Every few blocks, he'd glance up at me as if to say, "You're still there?" Good. Room 214 smelled like old books and lemon-scented cleaner when we arrived. Ghost shook the snow from his coat with surprising delicacy before exploring every corner, his nails clicking against the linoleum. I emptied my emergency snack drawer, granola bars, a bag of almonds, and a single pudding cup I'd been saving for lunch, onto a makeshift plate of stapled-together construction paper. Ghost ate with the precision of someone who remembered hunger, licking every crumb from the paper before looking up expectantly. "You're trouble, aren't you?" I murmured as I scratched behind his ears. He responded by flopping onto my feet with a contented sigh, his warm weight instantly making the drafty classroom feel more like home. The students noticed immediately. "Mr. Calloway, is that a wolf in your supply closet?" whispered Sofia Gutierrez during third-period study hall. Ghost had poked his head through the slightly ajar door, his ears swiveling toward every voice like satellite dishes. "Temporary classroom companion," I said automatically, but Ghost had already decided otherwise. He padded silently to Sophia's desk and rested his chin on her knee with the solemn dignity of a royal courtier. The usually unflappable debate team captain froze, then burst into quiet tears. Later, she confessed through hiccuping breaths that her childhood golden retriever had been put down over winter break, and Ghost had sat exactly the same way when she cried about her parents' divorce in 7th grade. By lunch, half my senior English class was, accidentally, dropping bits of sandwiches near my desk. By week's end, Principal Alvarez reluctantly approved Ghost's presence after he calmly intervened during a panic attack in the counseling office. The student, a transfer from Milwaukee who hadn't spoken since arriving, buried his hands in Ghost's thick ruff and whispered, "You smell like my grandpa's cabin," before describing the forest fires that had destroyed it. The train station staff recognized Ghost immediately when I went back to investigate. "Oh, the little Husky," said Maria, the morning ticket clerk. "Yeah, he's been here every morning this week. Just sitting there like he's waiting for someone. We figured he belonged to one of the commuters." Security footage revealed a slim figure in an oversized blue parka leaving him there at dawn 5 days prior. The resolution was too poor to make out features, but the way they'd knelt to hug him, shoulders shaking, face buried in his fur for a full minute before walking away, left no doubt about the grief in that goodbye. I expanded my search, Every lost pet Facebook group within 50 miles, calls to local vet clinics, even flyers stapled to telephone poles near the station. Nothing. Then, on a frigid Saturday morning while stocking up on grading supplies at the corner store, I spotted a familiar shade of blue through the laundromat window across the street. A teenage boy was folding what looked like an identical navy scarf, his movements precise and practiced. Ghost, dozing in the passenger seat of my car, suddenly went rigid. His nose pressed against the glass, leaving foggy circles as he whined deep in his throat. The boy looked up. What followed wasn't the dramatic reunion movies portray. There was no running in slow motion, no swelling soundtrack. Just a 14-year-old kid named Mateo Lopez standing frozen in front of a washing machine, his dark eyes gone liquid as they locked onto Ghost. "You kept him," he breathed, his voice cracking. Then he was outside, palms pressed against the car window. Ghost lost all composure, barking, scratching at the glass, his entire body wriggling with joy. The story came out in fragments between Mateo's attempts to hug Ghost through the car window. His mom's new apartment building had a strict no-pets policy. The shelters were all full. His uncle's farm had seemed like a solution until Ghost kept escaping to chase chickens. "I tried everything," Mateo said, finally letting himself into the car to bury his face in Ghost's neck. "Even that no-kill shelter in Naperville said Huskies are hard to adopt out. I couldn't let him." He'd spent weeks training Ghost to sit perfectly still at the train station because that's where the kind people wait in the mornings. The scarf had been his abuela's last Christmas gift. The note had been his 23rd attempt. "I kept trying to explain everything," he admitted, kicking at a slush pile. "About Mom's new job and the apartment and how sorry I was. But none of them sounded right. Then I just wrote what mattered." Ghost, blissfully unaware of the emotional turmoil, was busy attempting to lick every inch of Mateo's face simultaneously. What began as temporary shelter evolved into something extraordinary. Ghost displayed an uncanny intuition. He'd press against students during anxiety attacks, nudge the elbows of struggling readers, even alert me to silent distress by dropping his favorite chew toy at their feet. The school psychologist called it canine empathy. The kids called it magic. Our first hospital visit confirmed which term was more accurate. In the pediatric oncology ward, Ghost bypassed all the brightly decorated doors and went straight to room 307, where a 9-year-old named Lainey hadn't spoken since her bone marrow transplant. Without prompting, he climbed carefully onto her bed and laid his head on her lap. 2 hours later, they were drawing together on the floor, Ghost's tail thumping rhythmically against the linoleum as Lainey whispered the names of each crayon color. Months later, I found Mateo waiting at bench 14 again, this time with official permission to visit Ghost whenever school allowed. He'd started volunteering at the animal shelter on weekends, determined to help other unadoptable pets find their purpose. As for Ghost, he still carries Mateo's scarf in a special pocket of his therapy vest. Not because he needs reminding of where he came from, but because every so often someone at the hospital or the group home will clutch that scrap of blue wool like it's the first solid thing they've held onto in years. And when they ask why a dog would need a scarf, I tell them the truth. Because love always leaves a marker, I say as Ghost leans against their wheelchair or hospital bed. Even when it has to let go. The scarf stays with them for as long as they need it. Ghost never seems to mind. He just waits patiently, his ice blue and earth brown eyes watching, until they're ready to give it back.